Anime is on the rise, and there are so many incredible shows to keep up with. You have Jujutsu Kaisen, Kaiju Number 8, Demon Slayer, and then you have My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia is a huge anime with a very dedicated fan base. My Hero Academia may seem like your typical run-of-the-mill shonen anime, but I think it has something important and unique to say when it comes to meaning making. So let's dive into My Hero Academia and the meaning of life. If you're watching this and you're not familiar with My Hero Academia, 1, what are you doing here? And 2, here's a quick recap of the basic premise of the show. My Hero Academia is a world filled with humans who developed a mutation that allows for superpowers, and these are called quirks. Quirks have become a major part of human society in the world of My Hero Academia, and most people have quirks. Notice how I said most. Not everyone is born with a quirk, and if you're one of the unlucky few to be born without a quirk, you're an outcast. This is where we find our protagonist, Midoriya. Midoriya is absolutely obsessed with Japan's #1 hero, All Might. He spends hours watching footage of All Might, fantasizing about being able to emulate his favorite hero one day. His world comes crashing down when he visits a doctor who lets him know that he's quirkless. This is inferred from the number of joints in your pinky toe. If you have more than one pinky toe joint, you're most likely quirkless. This is devastating to both Midoriya and his mother. Regardless, Midoriya puts on a brave face and continues to live in a world where he's an outsider. After saving a classmate from a villain, even though Midoriya's classmate has an incredible quirk and Midoriya was quirkless, he's saved by his favorite hero, All Might. Midoriya, being a huge All Might fan, is star-stricken. Eventually, All Might reveals his biggest secret to Midoriya, that his quirk, One for All, is a stockpile quirk that can be passed down from one user to another. And because it's a stockpiling quirk, it makes each successive user of the quirk more powerful than their predecessor. All Might passes on One for All to Midoriya, and Midoriya finally gains access to the world of quirks. The main antagonist of the series is All for One. This is also the name of his quirk, and as you probably guessed, he's the opposite of One for All. Rather than passing on a quirk to a new person and allowing the new user to get stronger, All for One can take quirks for himself and use them as he sees fit. He can also choose to give away quirks to whomever he chooses, though that person can't give away the quirk that was given to them. The meaning of life is a pretty big question, and I've always found it to be fairly vague. What purpose is there that something or someone is here rather than nothing or no one? Depending on who you ask and their philosophical leanings, you'll get dramatically different answers. Someone with a religious bent may say to follow their God's will. Someone with a pessimistic view may say that there is no meaning. And a French philosopher from the 60s may say to create your own meaning. For those that do agree on the idea of a meaningful existence, there is probably at least one thing everyone agrees on. It's important that you are you. If there is a meaning to life, there's a meaning to being an individual. It's important that you are within your own shoes and you're not somebody else. If the meaning wasn't contingent on individuality, your specific life wouldn't be meaningful, as the purpose could be fulfilled by anyone else at any given time. I think this is best fleshed out in Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. This is a concept that I've expounded on in other videos, so be sure to check those out if you're interested. But the idea is that the hero goes out into the unknown, brings something back of great importance, and this is brought back into the known world for all to benefit from. The hero's journey is a framework for storytelling and can be looked at as a rough sketch of all mythologies and great works of storytelling. The important part for us is the fact that the hero is called forth. The calling is for the hero themselves, and it's important that the hero is who they are. If Neo is called forth, it wouldn't suffice to have Anakin take his place, if Neo chose not to take the journey. So it's important that the individual accepts the call. The other important aspect of the hero's journey is the return back home. The hero can't stay in the realm of the unknown. They were put there for a purpose, and once they've accomplished that, it's time to take your knowledge and return back home to better society at large. A great example of this can be found in the religious idea of the Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is a religious figure in Buddhist literature who has attained enlightenment. Rather than free themselves from samsara and experience the bliss of nirvana, the Bodhisattva reaches enlightenment and then continues their journey in the world, and this helps others to reach enlightenment by guiding them. This is an act of compassion, and it's an immensely meaningful act. Anime is filled with many of the tropes that we see in the hero's journey. Adventuring into an unknown place, a helper figure who acts as a guide in this new mysterious land, tests that are put in place to push the hero to their limits. But My Hero Academia has hit the nail on the head with their depiction of the journey of the individual. As we mentioned earlier, Midoriya, also known by his hero name of Deku, is an outcast and a stranger in a strange land. He's born without quirks, and while he isn't the only one, it certainly is rarer to be born without a quirk than with a quirk. Deku runs headfirst into the chaos of the unknown and displays his willingness to become a hero, regardless of the cost. He attempts to save his classmate who boasts an incredible quirk from a villain without consideration of the consequences of his actions. All Might sees that Deku has the spark and gives him a piece of his hair to swallow, allowing him to start his hero's journey and develop his quirk. This isn't too extraordinary when it comes to anime. I mean, look at Itadori in Jujutsu Kaisen or Tanjiro in Demon Slayer. Someone receiving special powers and being plunged into a new world isn't all that rare when it comes to anime or storytelling as a whole. However, when we look at the main antagonist of the series, All For One, the juxtaposition is what makes My Hero Academia so special. It offers a clear picture of the meaningfulness of the individual. One for All is an ability that's passed down from user to user. However, doing so starts to decrease the quirk's ability on the previous user. Because this ability can't be passed on and still retained by the previous user, it's incredibly important that whoever receives One for All is worthy of the power. The importance of the individual is primary when it comes to One for All, and it's not arbitrary who receives this incredible quirk. I mentioned that One for All is a stockpiling quirk. When a user passes this quirk down to a successor, the current user of One for All receives the strength stockpiled from all the previous users. It's also revealed with Midoriya that the current user can gain access to the consciousness of all previous users along with any quirks that they may have had. This makes One for All an insanely powerful quirk. When we take into account the requirements of the quirk, we can see how One for All depicts the role that the individual plays and how meaning is created through individuality. Each user of One for All is chosen specifically by their predecessor to serve the purpose of carrying One for All to the next generation. I think that My Hero Academia is saying pretty important things with the way that this quirk functions and its relationship to Joseph Campbell's idea of the hero's journey. A meaningful life can be led by those willing to dive headfirst into life itself. It's not important that one has the ability from the start to do great things, nor is it the best among us who can carve out purpose for life. Midoriya was objectively one of the weakest people in the world. However, his willingness to answer the call and without hesitation enter a world that was strange to him allowed him to create meaning for himself and his life. We learn from the hero's journey that entering the unknown is just one aspect of a meaningful life. And after you've received whatever it is that you need from the unknown, it's time to return back. Midoriya doesn't take One for All and use that strength only for himself. He trains and then gives back to those around him by defending not only the ones he loves, but anyone that needs defending. The fact that the previous users of the quirk are available to the current user demonstrates how, much like the Bodhisattva, in a way they stick around to help make sure all of humanity is safe. Now let's juxtapose this with All For One. All For One has the ability to take and give any quirk to either himself or anyone of his choosing. We see within the show that he has stockpiled an immense amount of quirks and he's obsessed with getting One for All. All For One, as is implied by the name, is the antithesis of One for All. One for All is a quirk that can only be given away, which is where it draws its strength, while All For One is a quirk that can be used to give quirks to others, but its strength lies in its ability to take from others. We do see All For One give quirks pretty frequently throughout the series. However, it's rather arbitrary when a quirk is given to someone. All For One could come back and take the quirk from whomever he chose to give it to, and even if he didn't, he has a virtually unlimited amount of quirks at his disposal. One for All is particular with its user, while All For One is arbitrary. All For One is the antithesis of what a meaningful life is meant to be. Anyone could be given a quirk from All For One, and the individual that receives this quirk could have just as easily not received it. While One For All values the individual and the new user is chosen because they are that person, All For One doesn't care who has any given quirk. One For All as a quirk is entirely purpose-driven, as the quirk stockpiles past users' abilities and aims towards making sure that humanity is safe. All for One lives up to its name and is entirely self-motivated. Rather than a bodhisattva that decides not to enter into nirvana, All for One would be the talented practitioner who enters nirvana without a second thought of anyone else. The reason this is devoid of meaning is it skips one of the most crucial aspects of the hero's journey, the return. If the hero stays in the unknown after they have received whatever it is that they were lacking, they've missed the return and the journey was meaningless. The meaning lies in the sharing of the new information or object with the rest of humanity. Meaning is in short supply in our current age. You can find no shortage of people asking, what's the point of all of this? Just like the myths Joseph Campbell loved to discuss, the answer lies in one of the most unexpected places. My Hero Academia is a fun anime about a world brimming with superpowers, but it's not just that. This anime gives us insight into the nature of a meaningful life and shows us two paths, one filled with meaning and purpose, and one meaningless. One for All shows us that who you are is valuable, regardless of your circumstances. If you're ready to accept the call, your life can absolutely be filled with meaning.